Sounds good.
Oh, there. It's 4:05 now. Okay. Well, let's start. Let's see. And it's okay. There we go. So, hi, Ryan. I'm so glad that you could make it, that you're here in the Safer Roads webinar. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is the business and we're going to talk about today is been built on personal unfortunate circumstances where a distracted driver ran a red light while texting, and unfortunately I was in his proximity and ended up getting pretty badly injured. But before that, I've started some other companies. I'm also an Ironman triathlete, endurance athletics enthusiast, aspiring foodie cook, father to an 18-month-old, proud husband, and all in all, just excited to connect today.
That's great. So, talk to us a little bit about your racing background and how you got into triathlon.
Sure. I started out actually as a collegiate baseball player. I played baseball in college. Growing up, all I ever wanted to be was a professional baseball player, but never quite made it to the next level after college. And so when I moved to New York for my first job, I found myself spending far too much time sitting in front of a computer screen without really any kind of physical fitness outlet into which I could direct all of my attentions and efforts outside of work. And a buddy of mine, a good friend of mine who worked at the company I was working for, had said, "You should try triathlons." I said, "I have no idea what a triathlon even is." He goes, "Well, I'm a coach, come to one of my classes." And so I came to a class. It was a bike class. Absolutely loved it. Everyone who was there was talking about how much fun the sport is. So I made a bunch of friends in the community that were involved in triathlon, even though I didn't know how to swim. I'd never biked more than a couple miles in my entire life. And the most I had ever run was 2 miles around the nature trail of my college campus. And so, but I was instantly hooked. It was a lofty challenge. The idea of taking part in 3 different sports that I really didn't have much experience with. But I dedicated myself tirelessly outside of work to try to get as good as I could in those sports. I joined a triathlon club in New York, made a number of friends in the triathlon community, spent 12 months training, and got to the start line on my first Ironman 12 months later, and had such a wonderful experience that I truly caught the bug, and I've been hooked ever since.
Which Ironman was that?
It was Louisville.
I've never done Louisville, but I've heard great things, especially about the swim.
The swim was in the Ohio River, which wasn't the cleanest body of water I ever swam in, but relative to the Hudson in New York City, it's certainly a lot cleaner than that.
Yeah. It's funny because in Texas we have these man-made, they're not even lakes, they're just like the little neighborhood lakes, and a lot of the local tries take place there, right? So you get used to swimming in everything. I mean, in everything. It's just interesting, and when you put it in perspective and all the stuff that I've swum in my life.
I was always taught the first thing you do when you get out of the Hudson is wipe your mouth, because you got all the slime and the trash in there.
Oh, gross. Yeah. Ugh. Anyway, moving on to nicer topics. So you love, well, you mentioned that you started the app because you had a close encounter, and do you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean,
Sure. So back when I was living in New York, one of my favorite ways to start the day was to go out for a morning bike ride. So I would bike across to the West Side Highway, try to get out to New Jersey or over the GW Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, one morning, as I'm biking, I saw a motorist coming down one of the avenues. Didn't see me. Decided he was going to run the red light because he wasn't paying attention, looking down at his phone. I fortunately saw it coming, so I ended up swerving to avoid the direct collision. But I ended up flipping over my handlebars, fracturing my hip, my elbow, and spent the better part of the next 3 months or so in pretty bad shape. And so the concept for for putting an end to this dangerous behavior has been on my mind for quite some time. And, when you kind of peel back the onion and you look at the data, you find that, your story and my story and thousands of other stories, even at that number, that's not alone. I mean, there are literally millions of accidents that take place every single year from this. And it's not just cyclists, it's pedestrians, it's other motorists, it's everyone in between that are affected by this. And so it's been a problem that I personally felt the pain point. I know you have as well. And it's something I've long wanted to solve.
Yeah, and I mean, I love what you guys are doing, and we'll talk about the app in a minute. I think that until there are harsher consequences, I think it has to go hand in hand, because I strongly believe that positive reinforcement is how you change behavior long term, and it's been proven. And I think also as the transition phase, we also need harsher laws and harsher consequences, not only positive but also negative. I mean, you know what I mean. Right now, one of our ambassadors and my friend Katie, she just went through the legal process. She just went through her criminal case, and she was distraught. She told me at the end of it, she said, it was like getting hit all over again, but in my head, like in my mind. It was torturous, because the conclusion was basically that this driver who her crash was very similar to mine, in the sense that we both landed on the left side. So she had very similar injuries, except she also damaged her hand and her wrist. But anyway, so yeah, and concluding with Katie, she actually, the driver only had $1,000 fine and 8 hours of not even community service, just driver's ed.
That's wild.
And the reason was because this was a family man, and the judge claimed that he didn't want to take him away from his family. And I mean, it was just mind-blowing, because Katie's a single mom. She has 2 kids, and she had to be away from her kids because of this person. So anyway, yeah, so there's so much work to be done. But I think that with your app, I think that is such an interesting and such an innovative way of trying to solve this issue. And I love what you guys came up with. So do you want to tell us
Thank you.
more about it? I don't know, Daniel,
Sure.
are you familiar with the app?
I'm not, no.
No?
So if you have an iPhone, you can search in the iPhone, the App Store, for This App Saves Lives. We call it Tassel for short. But the company, the product is a mobile app-based solution that the technology behind it rewards drivers who choose not to drive distracted. And so you as a driver earn rewards points based upon the number of minutes that you drive distracted. And you can then go into our rewards portal all within the app and redeem those points for amazing gifts and rewards from a nationwide community of merchant partners. So effectively what we're doing is we are gamifying and incentivizing safe driving behavior to replace a dangerous habit with a far more rewarding and addictive one. And so it's very much a carrot, not the stick approach, which is, as you already alluded to, Trini, it's very much grounded in behavioral psychology, which finds that you get the most out of people for rewarding them for the right choices, as opposed to beating them with a stick and punishing them for making the wrong ones. And what we've seen over time in the distracted driving space is that, plug-in solutions to your car that block your ability to receive a signal or send a message, it doesn't work, because people just disable it. They don't want that. They don't want to be told what not to do. And so what we've kind of done is flip that on its head and said, okay, well, what if we create a system where the rewards are meaningful enough that you will decide that you get more value and joy and excitement out of earning those rewards than you do from that instant gratification of needing to pick up your phone when you're behind the wheel of a moving vehicle.
And they say it takes about 20 days to modify behavior. I don't know
Yeah, you see that across all industries, health, wellness. This is not irreversible. It can be done. It's important to do it early, and we certainly, we try to get in at the early stages with younger drivers, high school age drivers, college age drivers, because unfortunately, when you look at the data, you find that the number of distracted driving related fatalities are unfortunately bent towards the younger demographic. However, so we as an organization try to get in at the early level, but it doesn't mean that adults like you and I aren't also bad offenders.
No, for sure. And I think it's crucial going to like the younger drivers and the new drivers, right? I mean, from the very, very moment that they start driving, I think that they should understand that driving is a privilege. And with something like this, it will become fun, right? And I think that's really important.
It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's addictive, it's competitive. And I think in talking closely with all of our users, there's some value in being able to feel like you're a part of something bigger than you are in isolation. And people have resonated strongly with the fact that even though no one may notice it, the small, little decisions that we each make individually every time we get behind the wheel can have a reverberating impact. And that's not lost on anyone.
That's amazing, because that's what I always try to convey as well, that we all have the power with our choices to create change. We all have the power to save a life. I mean, it's just really very individual. And if we start with ourselves, then, we can really create a huge impact.
Certainly.
So, yeah. And so what do you need to download the app? Only iPhones can do it, or
It's
can?
only an iPhone today. We'll be launching Android at some point. It won't be right away. We're pretty focused on making sure we've done a great job on the iPhone user landscape, and that is the larger system here in the US. But eventually it'll be on Android. You download the app, it's free. You set it once and you basically forget it. You don't need to remember to open the app each time you get in the car. It automatically runs in the background.
That's amazing.
You're constantly earning points. And then whenever you want, you go into that rewards portal and you redeem those points for whatever gifts and rewards that our merchant partners are offering.
That's really, really cool. And who have you partnered with so far?
We've partnered with a number of schools. We've got 75 or so school partners around the country. We've got distribution relationships with various brand partners of ours. Some of the brands that you would be familiar with, Urban Outfitters and Shake Shack are kind of the big ones. We've got a number of e-commerce partners, given the fact that it's a little bit more challenging in today's world to visit a brick and mortar store to redeem your points. So we've got partners that can ship rewards regardless of where you live. And then in some of the target markets where we've launched, we do have brick and mortar stores, and we are trying to drive traffic to those companies to help support them during this difficult retail environment in which we're all living.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, when did you launch officially?
Just early this year. We've only been live since early 2020.
That's crazy, because I was going to ask you if you've noticed like any difference between like non-COVID and COVID, but it was too young, I think, to really know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, certainly there are fewer drivers on the road, although we're starting to see a lot of a pretty big pickup. And for better or for worse, when everyone's more comfortable being on the road, we are seeing signs pointing towards people driving their own cars instead of taking public transportation. And so you look at like automotive sales are through the roof, new car, used car sales are through the roof. So more and more people are planning to drive in their own vehicles instead of taking the riskier public transport where they might catch COVID. So that's going to make our mission even more important. And, it's going to make it even more important for cyclists like you and I to just be careful out there as well.
I was going to ask you, so when does it activate? Like, how fast do you have to be going in order for it to pick up?
10 miles an hour. So cyclists themselves could also earn, or if you're a really fast runner, I suppose, you could earn points for those activities. And we have no problem with that too. I mean, we don't want a cyclist out there riding along, looking at their phone. And I live in a city. I see it all the time. So if we can prevent distractions while you're on the phone, distractions while you're in the car, while you're on your bike, while you're on your scooter, that's all for the better.
I'll tell you what, I wish you could do something for even for pedestrians, because I live in a college town, and most of the time the kids are like this and they're walking like this. They're crossing like this and they're oblivious to what's going on around them. So we really have to look out for them, right? And it would
Sure.
be really cool for them to have an incentive to kind of put their phone away for a second and
I
focus.
always think about, even broader applications, like for, when you think about technology addiction, and being distracted by your phone, certainly distracted driving is an enormous opportunity for improvement. But beyond that, kids in the classroom not being able to learn because they're addicted to their phones. Employers, when you're at the office, you're not doing your job because you're glued to your technology, your Facebook feed. And then call me old fashioned, but like, I get so tired of seeing families out to dinner and everyone's on their phone, not living in the moment, not interacting with each other. So certainly when you talk about pedestrians as well, you can also think about all these different avenues for replacing technology addiction with something more rewarding.
That's really interesting. And yeah, I think unfortunately, like our kids' generations, they're really impacted. And now with online learning, it's just, very, oh no, it's just, I think it's going to be crucial in the future in order to be able to modify and reconnect with people. And
100%.
yeah.
100%.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So on that note, I don't know, Dan, do you have any questions for Ryan?
No, I think not at this time. I'm an Android user myself, so I'll be looking forward to that possible release later. But I mean, definitely think this could be something that could be shared with local safety driving courses. Our high school, even though they're remote right now, will probably be offering like the seniors and juniors like the driving safety course that it'd be good to get in, like you said, for the younger drivers, that positive reinforcement right off the bat. You're a brand new driver. This is what you can do, to have, really good, standards when you drive to make sure, nothing bad happens. So, I mean, that's I think a good place to capture, it helps. My wife's a high school teacher, so I'll definitely be saying, tell all your kids about this.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think spreading the word is really, really important because it can be really fun. I mean, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to feel bad. I think when you feel good about what you're doing and you do it, over and over, I think it'll really create a big, big impact long
What,
term.
what have you found to be the most effective ways to spread the word surrounding your mission?
Well, when we first started, it was a very clear call to action. So I collected videos from people, and people felt very much involved. I think that's really important. I think the fact that they were able to share, and not only cyclists that have not had incidents happen, but I had some very touching crash survivors that shared their story, and it was very compelling. But when I started visiting, because one of the things that I've tried to do is try to kind of unite all of these people that are out there fighting to make roads safer independently. I've been trying to kind of be the liaison between these people, because for whatever reason it hasn't like really clicked that we need each other. So one of the people that I went to see, and now this person's not even there anymore, he retired, but I went to see Tim Blumenthal at People for Bikes here in Boulder, and we had a meeting with their marketing people, and basically what she said to me was that one of the strengths of It Could Be Me had to do with the fact that we had people, right? It was just a very, very good connection. Hold on, someone is coming in. Because up until now, I think that they have been trying to create this rehumanizing of cyclists or vulnerable users without really having the human element, right? So you have like a photo, but you can either identify with that photo or not. But we
Sure.
have a real person telling you, this is me and this is what happened to me, and I'm a mom and I'm just like you, right? I'm not, it could be literally, it could be any of us. And that started spreading, and suddenly I was in a position where I was able to go to Kona, and I went up to the pros and I just figured that a lot of people were going to be interested in what they had to say. And I had my little elevator pitch of like, sometimes it was 10 seconds, sometimes it was 60, depending on who or the circumstance. And I managed to get, I think, a video from every pro that I asked.
Wow.
So that made it, that amplified it. And it was very, very much focused on videos in the beginning. And I always knew that it had to be like at least a threefold movement, that I couldn't just be a visual movement. I knew that we had to have education and we had to have policy change. So I've been trying to kind of weave those into what It Could Be Me is growing up to be. And it's working. I think people are our ambassadors are very, very passionate. They're in the main most already involved in their communities. So this is just like an extra thing. And right now, the way we started the program prior to COVID, it was organized so if you had more time, you could be in a tier called the cross country ambassador, right? If you had a little bit less time, but you still wanted to be involved, you would be an Olympian. If you just wanted to post and continue doing what you were doing, but yet this was important to you, you could be a sprinter. So we had like different tiers, right? Right now, I'm thinking about reorganizing it because, quite frankly, I think we all are in different moments in our lives where, some people are really struggling. And so I think what I'm going to do now with a page is I'm going to start grouping people by areas or by states, so they can start getting to know each other and really creating a big force within
That sense of community for sure.
Yeah.
I think harping on the human element is so important.
Yeah.
It just humanizes it. And we always talk about the ability to be a superhero each time you get behind the wheel, and putting kind of a face to the name. It just makes such a fundamental difference. I mean, you can throw statistics up there all you want, but statistics don't draw the same level of emotion that video does, or that human element. So I wholeheartedly agree with everything you just said.
Yeah, thank you. No, absolutely. And I think the more we emphasize that, the further we're going to get. One of the key things for the videos that I asked for initially, because, this is a totally grassroots movement, I asked people not only to share the video with me, but to share it with their network. And
Sure.
that way, perhaps Uncle Bob, that had never given it a second thought, will look at this video and say, oh my gosh, it could be my niece, right? It could be any of those people. So suddenly that anonymous body on a bike on the road becomes human again. So yeah, I think that was really, really important. And I started getting feedback from people telling me that, oh, like one girl said to me, yeah, my aunt, who like before was like oblivious, started sending me clippings from her newspaper, her local newspaper, about what was happening with cyclists. So it was like a big aha moment for her.
Yeah.
And that's huge. So.
Well, and by the way, you live in Boulder, the cyclist mecca.
Right.
And if you didn't get your elevator pitch into someone at Kona, I'm pretty sure you have a second chance, given the fact that a lot of them live in your neck of the woods.
You
So
know, it's
that,
very funny. The first day I got there, I was invited to this party, and it turned out that everybody I spoke to lived in Boulder, but I had never met them. I was like, oh, that's a really far way to come to meet you.
I can remember when I was doing the Ironman, you know, I used to always watch the Ironman championship, and Craig Alexander was like, you know, the guy I always wanted to meet. And sure enough, I'm living in Boulder, and I walk into the Newton running store, and there's Craig Alexander. And, you know, you go out to Estes Park, and you see all these amazing athletes doing their thing. It's a phenomenal community out there.
Yeah. You know, Craig Alexander, he made a video for us there in
Oh,
Kona.
really?
Yeah, he was such a nice guy. And yeah, I mean, everybody that I asked, there was not one person that said no. I got trying to think which was the
Tim O'Donnell out there as well.
oh yeah, he made one, and Miranda Carfrey,
Yep.
and they made them separately, like on different days, which was really funny. But they both, I think, referenced each other in their video, which was really cute.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
The two trickiest ones were Lucy Charles and Lionel Sanders.
Yep.
I think they have such a hardcore fan base that it was just, we had to go to like a separate parking lot, and just we had to arrange to meet opposed to just stopping them, because the crowds were just massive. It was crazy. Yeah. But yeah, everybody, sadly, I found, has had some brush with, you know, with this, and it's very, very sad. But I think we're all in the same place, and we all want this to change, and we're all ready. And even, I mean, right now with COVID, I'm looking and I'm seeing a huge change, in the sense that there are more cyclists than ever on the roads. There are more pedestrians than ever. And, you know, I strongly believe that if we welcome those with open arms, and we show them the way, and we, you know, like you got hooked with a community, me too. I mean, if we embrace these new riders, then, you know, then we'll have less cars on the roads. And I know that's not working for your app, but but at the same time,
That's a good problem for us to have. And if you look at, I suspect that cities will reconsider their design to become more bike friendly. And I think there's already some pushes underway from a number of cities to do just that. And if that happens, the importance of protecting, you know, the folks on the road couldn't be more top of mind.
yeah, all these streets that, I mean, they've become now pedestrian only, and they've opened up the streets so there's more outside seating. So, I mean, we are taking over the roads, which is a fantastic thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. So someone named iPhone just joined, or joined a little bit back. I don't know if iPhone wants to say something. Hello? I don't know. Well, they could use the app because they have an iPhone. Well, what else can we talk about? I just think, you know, it's really, really important that people understand about how positive reinforcement can really be a game changer. And maybe if you can talk a little bit more about how you came to this conclusion. I mean, I don't know if you studied psychology, or if you have friends, or
I've going back to college, I used to study behavioral psychology to some extent. That wasn't my primary focus, but I was always interested in how human emotion can impact economics and decisions and behavior. And it started out with the stock market, and how, you know, the prices of stocks can be not necessarily always moving very rationally, because people aren't rational. People make the decisions to buy or sell, and depending on how their emotions are, their state of being, whether there's herd mentality, overconfidence, like those sorts of things always intrigue me about how human emotion can play into things. And so there are a number of economists and theorists out there that have spent their careers doing research on human behavior and human psychology. And it's been a fascinating area of interest for me. And so it's something I've long followed. And when you dig into some of the research about consumer behavior, there is a ton of information out there that shows how to get the most out of people, and how to kind of how to really extract the most amount of engagement and excitement and behavioral change. And what it finds is that you're much more likely to trigger the right changes when you are using a rewards-based approach than you are from cracking the whip. And so, thinking about that problem, thinking about that opportunity, and thinking about the problem that we're all facing with distracted driving, it was kind of a no-brainer to put the two together and to say, okay, what if we built a solution that rewarded folks for not taking such dangerous behavior when they're behind the wheel? And then became the question, well, what kind of rewards would excite people? And so we did a ton of research. We found that there are various brands and various value amounts, dollar amounts of rewards that are really going to move the needle. Like giving someone 10 cents off a cup of coffee is probably not going to replace that level of satisfaction that comes from getting a text message and immediately wanting to see who it's from. Mm-hmm. But if you can make the value sufficient such that the joy from that is greater than the joy from picking up your phone, well, then all of a sudden you're kind of onto something special. And so then became the question, well, who sponsors those rewards? And so I spent a ton of time, and our team spent a ton of time talking to brands all around the country. And what we found is that companies are frustrated with the traditional ways of advertising. Facebook return on investment is far less today than it used to be. And the other various digital media marketing platforms are very saturated. So what if there was an opportunity to help those brands acquire new customers, but to do so in a way that also benefits the customers and benefits the safe driving landscape? And so that's how we kind of came up for the concept was creating a platform for brands to offer special perks and incentives, which in turn would drive new traffic in their direction from our audience of drivers redeeming their points for those perks. Mm-hmm. We've created kind of a win-win situation where drivers win for doing what they should be doing all along, which is driving safely. Brands win because they get to acquire a new customer, but they also get to go out there and say, you know what, we care about the community in which we're operating. And we all win as a landscape in general because we've created a far vastly safer driving landscape. And so that's kind of our MO, trying to create that win-win situation and make the world safer in the process.
And it's huge because from what I have found, just, in the short amount of time that I've been in this space, is that every time there's a distracted driver bill waiting to work its way into becoming a law, there are so many different agendas. So, we were really, really close this time in Colorado, but one person basically let us know that it had to do with discrimination, that it would give police, well, not all the police, it would give the wrong people the wrong reason to pull someone over. It would be an excuse instead of focusing on the reality, which is, all of these people are getting killed every day because of distracted driving. So with an app like yours, with different approaches, with creative approaches, I think that we can kind of loop around the legal system and give it time to do its thing. Even the building of infrastructure, there's a lot of things that are going to be happening, but it's going to take a long time. And there's more and more people, and, there's just so many resources, and we kind of have to let them kind of catch up with how much we're growing. And so attacking it at a different angle, I think, is fascinating. I think it's really amazing that you're doing it in such a positive way. And yeah, one of the things that I have right now, and it's interesting with everything that happens, and it could be me and me, there's no coincidences. It's just very straightforward, and this is kind of like what's going to happen, and I'm just kind of following along. One of my very, very dear friends, and she's been my friend forever, she is a professor, and she teaches behavioral psychology. And I was talking to her maybe a month ago, right before I contacted you, because I wanted her to conduct a study so we could have different data to see, not only I know who our target audience is, but how to kind of make them change. And she always told me it has to be with positive reinforcement. And then boom, your app comes up on, Triathlete magazine, and it's Susan Lacke, my favorite author in the world. And so it's just really, really fun.
Very fortuitous. Very fortuitous, that's for sure.
Yes. So yeah, I think we'll do great things together. And I think if we keep a positive attitude, I think things will happen. I think we have to go around the system, unfortunately, but it can be done.
I always say it's a big enough problem that no one's going to do it by themselves. And the combination of legal, rewards-based approach, legislation, nonprofits. I mean, it's going to take an army, and when we're each biting off our piece of it, but we're all going after the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if you want to say anything else. I think it's been really informative.
It's been great to be here. I'm a big fan of your organization. I'm honored to be here today, and very appreciative of the invite.
Well, thank you. I think we have all learned a lot, and I will download the app for sure. And all iPhone users have to download the app and start gaining rewards. And oh my gosh, my connection's unstable, it says. Yeah, and start getting rewards and making a change. It's all about each individual. So.
Perfect.
So,
well, thank you.
No, well, thank you. And thanks everybody for being here. And yeah, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Have a nice day. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.